You have work to do. You can meditate when you're dead. How are you all? Good morning. I would like to get before we proceed, I'd like to get some voices express what they've experienced yesterday, how their meditation unfolded, what their state was like, what they noticed. And I encourage you, if you are sharing, to check in before, because we can't address everyone. See if you feel that your process is relevant to the group. And so I'm not asking you about a dream you had or funny portals that you saw, or I'm asking you to share specifically in alignment with the course curriculum, so to speak, of this event. And if what you have to share may be of benefit to me to know where you're at or those in the room. Yes.
Hello? Okay. Yesterday, and actually for 2 days, I had a bit of difficulty. I was doing good before, and then I found myself in a loop. And then I was trying the knower, consciousness, loving consciousness, awareness, whatsoever. And then yesterday, sorry, my hair was stuck in my ear glasses. I noticed that I tried something new. Sorry. Okay. So this is what I tried. Look around the room. You notice your attention looking through your eyes. Now turn around the gaze and look back at what is noticing. That is your consciousness. Pay attention to the one who's paying attention. Once Bentino mentioned that when you fall in love with someone else, it's not so much that you're falling in love with anybody else outside of yourself, because there is nobody outside of yourself. The one you're falling in love with is your true self. Now, when we fall in love with someone, getting to know someone, we have good days and bad days. And as we deepen the relationship, falling in love with the one who is paying attention through your eyes, the watcher consciousness, whatever it is, it'll change from day to day. It's okay to have good days and bad days. With faith, love, and perseverance, you eventually, all of a sudden, have major breakthroughs. So relax and know that all that is truly desired is already accomplished. Everything is already perfect because all already exists. I have a hard time with that word. Simultaneously? Okay, simultaneously. Thank you. The more you relax in the faith, the quicker it will happen. There is no such thing as lack. You are already the infinite loving consciousness, in love with itself. It is already done. So go ahead, fall in love with consciousness with zero expectations, and ignore the thoughts.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Luke? See who gets there first.
for many, many years, I have resisted meditating. I've had very good meditations, but for the most part, I sit there and I go, is it time yet?
Are we there yet?
And Michael Langford mentioned a place where you come to where the meditation is more attractive than the external circumstances.
Mm.
So I was meditating yesterday, and I noticed, well, I set a timer, and the timer went off, and I just had no interest in stopping.
I think it's on.
Is this on?
Yeah.
Okay. The light went off. I noticed no interest in stopping meditating. So I just sat there and continued to meditate, and it felt really nice to not be involved in the external circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a huge shift for me after many, many years of struggling with meditation.
Wonderful.
And I know that the struggle may arise again, but I feel very empowered to move on.
Mm-hmm. It's good. It's good to have these breakthroughs. They give you a boost of conviction and confidence, and they sort of up-level your baseline expectation and what you're comfortable with. Wonderful. I'm very happy for you. Thank you. I'd like to specifically know, I'll specify my question even more. I'm gauging, sensing, at what stage or level to proceed at this point. So I'd like to hear your experience specifically with grabbing hold of the knower. Like, what does it feel like? What is your experience of knowing the knower, of being awareness? I want you to be able to describe some of the nuances of that and whether or not you struggle with that.
Yeah. I feel different. Unfamiliar
Unfamiliar?
with
Wonderful.
where I'm at. And everything is so exciting.
Ooh.
Like the water out of the shower and the way it feels. That's where I am.
Wonderful. That's
and
what.
it's really quiet.
Mm-hmm. Have you noticed a shift in desires over the last 4 days?
Yeah.
Yeah, really, when the desires shift, a lot of the meditation and some of the effects, some of the noticeable effects, like being able to enjoy things from a state of freedom or confidence, they will naturally arise. It's not hard to meditate if you have realigned your desires. That's why we did a lot of that work the first 2 days.
I noticed one thing I was doing though was you said there was a male and a female way of meditating, penetrating, or softening. I softened mine.
Okay.
That's what worked.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
That was when I made the difference. So,
Wonderful.
any
Thank
other
you.
question?
That's great. So again, in general, I recommend when it comes to resting in the God state, which is, again, it's just that primordial sense of essence, that primordial sense of awareness, spaciousness, love, light, isness, that which makes up everything, that out of which everything is projected, that of which everything consists. In order to become acquainted with that, I recommend a method that is more along the lines of Dzogchen, for those who are familiar with that, which is the resting naturally. You could call it a feminine approach if you wanted to. I try to avoid these labels, but you could call it that. It's a receptive approach. It's an approach of knowing that it's already done, indeed, and resting in that conviction of the natural state, and then allowing that noticing to occur as if on its own. So there's a little bit of will involved there, there's desire involved there, there's intent involved there, but there's no like hard struggle of trying to compare different states or this or that. It's just a resting of the state in that basic state of isness, awareness, love. And then, naturally, gradually, hinting slightly, using the will in small increments to kind of engage your curiosity for this state, an increase in curiosity for this basic state. When you start to first rest naturally and give up all that you're bothered with, relax your thoughts for 2 to 5 seconds. And in this near or completely thought-free state, for that moment you recognize the love, isness, awareness basic state that you can't get rid of. The basic state you can't get rid of. Everything that appears has its foundation in this space, this openness, this love, isness, awareness. It is in some ways a feminine approach. It's a opening up approach. It's a relaxing approach. It's a resting approach. When it comes to penetrating deeper into the absolute, it's helpful to be established in this sense of faith and natural conviction and natural rest and relaxation, so that that state is quite naturally obvious to you. You can begin to observe it, so to speak. Then you will find that the meditations to penetrate deeper, again, will be more of a penetrative nature, will be more directive, and it will use the will. But when the will comes from a state of having rested sufficiently in the natural condition of love, isness, awareness, it's naturally infused with faith and relaxation. So you want to kind of anchor yourself in this state of being faithful to surrender, faithful to knowing that it is already done. You want to have a high level of confidence in that, to be confident in the natural state, to be convinced of your natural state, no matter what appears, so that you can rest naturally even if chaos arises, because you're convinced, because you have faith, because you have conviction. Does that make sense? So the more we rest naturally, the more that conviction arises, and then the more we can begin to utilize the will at a higher level, on a less linear, verbal, mental plane, and more on a higher vibrational, higher density level of consciousness. Then we're able to penetrate, and we're able to start to see beyond, for which we need a pristine type of focus or clarity, in my experience, to see that in fact we are not even the basic state. We are the infinite freedom of even that, compared to which awareness seems like serious. God seems serious and full of itself. When there's the popping beyond that, it is freeing, perfect, hilarious, you could say, in some ways. And it releases even more. It's a little difficult to describe, but it suddenly makes the whole thing, yeah. Thank you for sharing. To your left.
So I've been on a pretty awesome rebirthing process starting a few months ago. I've just noticed myself naturally assuming a more neutral meditative state at all times, and I just gravitated into meditating on my own because it felt really good. So yesterday was a lot of fun for me to just kind of take the last few days and go deeper into that as you directed us. And it feels like everything is like a love story with myself now, and it's really fun because then, like, no matter what perspective I take, receiving any information from my vessel, it all just is reformed into this perspective of a love story between me and myself, and it's great. It's very private and incredibly open because it's very uniform. So I use, I think, more of a penetrative approach with my meditating. I try to go really deep into my physical vessel, looking onto it as a direct nearly infinite manifestation of our higher consciousness. I try to go really, really deep into my sensory nervous system, almost to the point where, like, if it becomes everything, then it kind of becomes nothing, and it allows me to expand past my physical vessel. So it really feels like I'm always in this kind of a duet relationship between the body, the vessel, and my being, myself. And I'm just always feeling the relationship between the two. And it feels like if the true self listens to certain requests of the body, certain just kind of fundamental needs that the body needs to exist in this projection, and then if the body follows the real true sensation of faith that the true self is guiding it with, then the duet turns into this really awesome, resonating, vibrational state.
So, who knows that? All that?
I do. The
That's
knower.
right. Can you stay with that and dismiss everything else you just said?
That's what I try to go towards. It's like.
So it doesn't matter what stories you have, it doesn't matter how you perceive reality, it doesn't matter what the body does or doesn't do. And we want to get to that point where we stop describing our experiences, we stop understanding our experiences, at least for the duration of our meditation. And our exclusive focus becomes to know the knower, because that's the only way to get to the state behind the known, to comprehend everything. Do you have experience with that?
Yes, I believe so, because there are moments where it pops into the thoughtless state of just nothing, and it's awesome. But
And do you notice that you exist in those moments? Or do you notice the thoughtless state?
no, it's just pure existence. It's not like, oh, there's the thoughtless state. It's like it's just there. It's just everything.
Cool. Good. So increase awareness of that, I would say. I would encourage you to relax your approach surrounding the body. I think it's coming from what you conditioned yourself with and what has worked for you to establish certain effects. But for the purpose of this retreat, I would say that will be more distracting than not. I would encourage you, unless you have no other access point to getting to know the knower, but I would say wake yourself up from this illusion that it happens through a certain mechanism. It really is here now. You know right now whatever appears. And you can either focus on what appears, or you can focus on the fact that you're the knower of what appears. And that's it.
So last night, when I was having some success popping through, I created kind of a desensitization situation out in the night, and just really tried to remove myself, like make myself super comfortable and remove myself from most of my sensory experience, while listening to, I use music as like an access point, because it's just, I don't listen to it per se, I just go into it in a vibrational state, and it kind of, it feels like my higher self is just using my vessel purely as an experiential tool to just observe itself. And
Once you're able to lock on to consciousness or the knower of the known, stop giving a lot of credit to the permission slips that got you there. Just begin to know the knower directly. It doesn't matter what arises. It doesn't matter how you feel. It doesn't matter if you're meditating or not, if you have incense or no incense, music or no music. You really want to, as fast as you can, get rid of those attachments, because they're delusions. They're literally mental containers that will make you feel like awareness happens in a certain way, through a certain form, in a certain sensation. And then you're still stuck in this dual judgment of awareness feels like this. And this is typical spirituality, and it's difficult to get rid of. It's when you take a linear mind that's concept-based, that's external focused, and you begin to teach it spirituality, even direct spirituality, inevitably it will create concepts of this, and it will create distinctions of life. And it will say, this is more awareness than that, or this is more the knower than that. Even if you wouldn't go and say that outright, you still have your addictions to certain forms and certain experiences and certain subtleties. Really understand that there is no distinction between any experience when it comes to knowing the knower. If you know that, I guarantee you, you'll have this big blast of freedom, of release, where you realize how free you are, and that there's truly no experience that could ever prevent you from knowing the knower. So that's what we want to get to, because that greatly increases your level of faith and conviction in that, which then naturally enhances the capacity to notice the radiance of that true, indescribable formless I am, which shines through everything. It becomes more noticeable the less mental containers or assumptions you place on it. So really understand that there's literally nothing right now blocking you from knowing the knower. And it doesn't matter what you currently know to know the knower. It doesn't help or not help to know something other than what you know right now, or to maintain what you know right now. You don't have to be in a certain sensory position to know that you know that sensory position. And what's tempting too for a lot of people is when you do have these subtle distinctions in your mind, and these subtle concepts and externalizations through which you have filtered, to which you have given away the power of the knower by saying, well, this is more knower than that. And therefore I'm going to seek out this experience and call it spiritual or meditation. And I'm going to try to rest and accumulate more of these sensations and avoid more of those sensations. When you do this, you're literally disempowering yourself, and you're not convinced of the natural state. You're not convinced of your effortless perfection. You're not convinced of awareness. You're not convinced that you are the knower no matter what you know. And once you begin to see that there couldn't ever possibly be anything known that would obstruct the knower, the more clearly you see this, the more your meditation is freed up to be always. Because it doesn't matter whether you have a conversation, or sitting quietly, or being in a flotation tank, or running a marathon. Know the knower. It doesn't matter. The world does not encapsulate the knower. It doesn't ever capture the knower. It doesn't ever affect the knower. It doesn't ever diminish the knower. It doesn't ever enhance the knower. Nothing in the known is real to the knower. That's like saying that the film projector light is only shining when there's certain scenes. It's not the case. If you're feeling not so meditative, then clearly you must know that. Focus on the fact that you know it, rather than on the fact that you don't feel so good. So you really, that is detachment. That is purifying the I am from what it sees. That's the distillation process of purifying the I am, of neti neti. Seeing, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not this, I'm not that. This does not affect the knower, that does not affect the knower, this does not affect my being, that does not affect my being. The more you pristinely observe this, clarify this to yourself, the more meditation, which is simply awareness of self, will pervade your everyday experience. It's literally like turning up the brightness or the exposure, like the brightness on your television screen. If you turn the brightness up all the way, then it'll just be obvious that it's all light, and the movie will start to sort of fade away. The story, the perception will start to fade away, and there's only the knowledge of the substance of the movie.
Just before I hand the microphone off real quick.
Sorry?
Before I hand the microphone off real quick,
Yeah.
you've spoken of contrast before, and it feels like I like to use contrast largely to see the separation and the distance and the beauty between things. And so it feels like when I use the body as contrast, as separation from the being itself, that's driving it. When you have, like using it as a tool, a vessel within this game that we're experiencing here, it feels like it creates.
So stop that.
Stop it.
Yeah, so stop thinking, because none of that exists without thought. So step one layer back. I'm trying to empower your practice, not disempower you.
No, that's why I'm listening.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
So you're one level too far into the illusion, and therefore the practice is still too associated, in my opinion, in order for it to be efficient and effective and powerful and what it can truly be. The practice is still too associated with form and description. When you stop description, there is no body. When you completely radically stop thinking, even for just 2 seconds, there is no thought, there is no sensation, there is no body, there is no description, there is no story, there is no more of this or less of that. Literally, the whole world you just projected and described, that you just drew in front of your mind, disappears, and you're left with the only thing you can really say is the space. And from that space, you can then recognize the knower more clearly. Usually, in the beginning, when you stop describing, because we have given away power to what we describe, and we think that what we describe is actually there beyond our descriptions, that what we perceive has an actual independent nature apart from our perception of it, apart from our describing it. But description is reality. There is no reality as we know it. The world as we know it, of objects, is completely gone when there's no description.
So to stay in that thoughtless state once you pop through,
No.
It requires like
No.
not to,
No.
like you can't be aware of it.
No. So you're still associating the knower with
But
something.
you spoke of using your will yesterday to explore that state, right?
Yeah, use your will to either completely surrender all descriptions or completely force to stop all your descriptions for 2 to 5 seconds. And in that moment of clarity, recognize the isness, the awakeness, where you're coming from, the seer, the knower that remains, that then naturally beams forth. In the absence of description, whether through surrender, you could say feminine approach, or will, you could say masculine approach, either way, you need faith and conviction and desire and passion for it. You need to be aligned. You need to want this. Stop yourself, all of yourself, and recognize the natural state. Become really radical from this day onward. Really do not allow any of these descriptions. Do not allow any of these associations. You can go back to that after this retreat. But you really want to detach from everything you've ever been taught or learned yourself about states of consciousness and expansion beyond the body. And those are all descriptions. The real expansion, the real higher state of consciousness, is naturally accessed when descriptions are eliminated or not allowed or surrendered, completely given up.
Where would you say consciousness is going when it accesses those states?
Sorry?
Where would you say your consciousness is going to when it accesses those states?
Okay, you're not getting what I'm saying.
Sorry?
So if you stop thinking,
Is it changing? Is it a density thing, or is it beyond? Like, if it's no longer even relevant to anything that we know.
but do you see how you're
is-
lost in description right now?
Yeah, but I don't care
You're-
about the description. Just
No,
like
but
about
you-
how
but
do we
you do-
how do we
you do,
discuss it
because
without
you're
describing?
you're trying to encapsulate consciousness and how it works in a descriptive framework that you can then mentally understand and project.
Well, I'd love to just not discuss it if we could just stare at each other and communicate it.
Well, I'm staring at you this whole time.
I'll stop talking.
Just notice the tendency to give form to consciousness. Even when you say the word consciousness, where does consciousness go? You already have a form in mind. You imagine consciousness to have a certain form. That's not consciousness, that's mind. Consciousness is that which remains when you stop that. Radically stop it or radically surrender it and let it be. And notice what remains. Gently notice, gently begin to awaken in what remains. And this is the balance of faith and will. When you've surrendered or willed everything to stop, from that state of, say, emptiness or thought freeness or almost thought freeness, descriptionlessness, from that state, you want to kind of like gently nudge yourself to wake up intently, yet not with too much mind. You want to stay in that space of surrender, of description, and yet awaken in that space to the watcher, the looker, the seer, the beer, the isness, the awakeness, the self. Just take that short moment and enhance and increase, turn up the clarity of that moment, the brightness, the awakeness. Awaken yourself gently, nudge yourself intently into awaken, 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 awaken. The word awaken is quite good, wake up, because it doesn't give you any concept. Like there's no concept to awaken, it doesn't have a certain form. You just wake up, it's an actual act of awakening. To what? You don't know, you're not describing it. If you're busy awakening yourself, you're not busy describing what awakening is. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. It's like that, it's like an increase in alertness of the natural state that's already here.
I came out of a meditative state once where my vision created and I couldn't.
Stop it. Do you see your addiction?
Yeah, to the experience, to the projection, right?
Yes.
So coming out of this state, the projection came across my vision, and
It doesn't matter. You
I
see.
couldn't even think though. I had no.
But who knows all that? The thought-free state becomes useless if you're not awake in it. There's a thought-free state all the time when you're in deep sleep, but it's useless because you're not using it. To
So
awaken.
you want to access it.
So you want to, it's one thing to not have any, a non-conceptual state isn't inherently better than a conceptual state. It's about getting yourself to stop description so that there is more of a REM data available for you to reflect upon or recognize awareness. It's not about the thought-free state. The thought-free state itself is still a perception. You're still looking at a thought-free mind. That's still mind. It's still an outward focus. Who knows that? That's the inward focus. Who knows the thought-free state? That's you. You want to be aware of the self, not of the mind being with or without thoughts. The without thoughts is just a method to get you to wake up to the space that remains of self. Do not mistake an awareness to be a thought-free state. It can result in a thought-free state, or it can be recognized from a thought-free state. But it's like your mirror might be cluttered with all kinds of stuff on it. Or you might have a clear mirror, but if you're still looking at the mirror instead of what it reflects, then you're not using the thought-free state. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thanks for your time.
Okay, thank you. Same row to your right. Yes. Keep your hand raised. Yes. Does this make sense to everyone? The self is not anything you perceive. Does that make sense? It is the perceiver. And the foundation of that perceiver, that universal light from which that perceiving occurs, the universal isness from where that individuated witness can even arise. You stop the mind, you notice the individuated witness, and that is like a keyhole that will then, in a sense, expand, and your sense of that awareness and that isness becomes more universal. Doesn't mean that you perceive everything that's happening everywhere in the universe all at once. That would be more mind. It's that you know the universal essence that makes everything possible. To be able to perceive everything would still be the mind thinking or expanding or becoming psychic or gaining powers in that way. That's not inherently the self-recognition that we're talking about. So when I say universal I am or the universal God state, I'm not saying that you will, in this life with this vehicle, be aware of everything all at once. I'm saying you'll be aware of the true nature of all things. And you will no longer identify that true nature as being located somewhere around the body or mind or individuation. You will know yourself then, thus, as the universal self. It'll be conviction. It'll be a deep, profound knowledge. It'll be a liberation. The witness is inseparable. That which knows your current state of mind is inseparable from that universal awareness, love, isness. To rest with the witness is to dissolve the witness into an even freer, purer state of the I am, where it's not limited anymore to only being focalized here. It knows itself free of space, time, location, and your life. You know yourself as beyond your life. Then this really becomes a game, in a sense. It already is, but you begin to take this less seriously, even though you can still be very sincere in form simultaneously. But you won't feel as affected by your life anymore.
Yes. In my practice, I've been experiencing more being in that state of awareness, no thought, really expansiveness, and more kind of deep penetration. And still, even though sometimes I feel even this bliss and sense of bliss and connected with this isness, and I still feel this reference point. You know, it can be outside in the space or beyond the body, or it can be kind of a lot in the level of my heart, kind of this expansive, but there is always this reference point. And I've been trying to explore more what, to go into what you tell about non-location, And sometimes I feel this like really, really far into that edge of like, who knows the nowhere, okay, I am in the I am, resting in the awareness, so who knows this? And then immediately it kind of takes me to that kind of, but it's still a reference point. And so I would like you to maybe talk a little more about this non-location.
So if you have a reference point, it means you can go deeper, because you can still recognize that you're the knower of that reference point. So the game is the same. You keep up-leveling. You keep transcending by asking yourself the question, who knows this? Who knows this? What knows this? What's the knower of this? Can I know the knower of this rather than this? Can I use this as a mirror reflecting the knower that's looking at that mirror? Creation, illusion, form is nothing but, the function is that of a mirror to the formless. Form functions as a mirror to the formless so that it can know itself, can see itself. So if you still have a reference point, that's great. Just notice the reference point. Let it be exactly as it is. Don't worry about it. Don't attach awareness to it. Don't believe you're limited by it. Be absolutely faithful and convinced in God, and know in that moment that you can simply let go of that focus and use it as a confirmation that you are deeper than that reference point. Otherwise you couldn't know the reference point. It's a confirmation of your deeper state. It's a confirmation that you're God. It's a confirmation that you're beyond it. It's a confirmation that it doesn't matter. If something appears to you, it doesn't matter because it appears to you. Therefore you are not that, not limited to that, not defined by that. That needs you. You don't need that. The appearance, the reference point, cannot be known outside of your knower, outside of your incomprehensible ability to know. That mysterious quality of I am, that first distortion of all of creation. So if something is a reference point, it's by definition not a blockage. In fact, it's a great aid. There's a reference point at different levels of subtlety of mind. The mind will become subtler and subtler and subtler the more it becomes aware of awareness. The more it recognizes the true nature of appearances, the more that this mind will become more purified and reflective and subtle. It'll become less outward. It'll become more subtle in its sensitivity, in its understanding, in the forms and symbolism that it uses. And so your reference points will become more subtle, but they're still there. And so they can be used as confirmations that you're the one beyond that, seeing it. And just to recognize that, just to remember that, you have then already utilized that reference point. It's already been extracted from its benefit. It's no longer projected to be an obstacle. You're no longer tying your free infinite being to that reference point just because it appears. So when something appears and is known to you, use it as a mirror, knowing that therefore clearly you're beyond it. Just that will snap you out of it. Just that conviction will rest you back into that, and then the bliss increases, or the sense of freedom or knowing yourself, or that radiance increases. So you're using the reference point, not to get stuck in another descriptive mode. Oh, I still have a reference point of location. How does that work? No, if you know that reference point, see that you're the one beyond that. And just then trust, surrender to that.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Thanks
yeah.
very much. Thank you.
Gentlemen in the aisle.
Good morning.
This is helpful, by the way. This is good data. And I'm beginning to get a sense of where to go from here, which is why I wanted this break day.
Good morning. I think in general my experience tracking through the day is less thought and more interaction with this kind of this awareness. And I noticed that I definitely have, you described sort of two ways of experiencing it, the kind of more passive way and then the more assertive way. And I find myself kind of doing those somewhat naturally. I'll notice myself in thought and then remind myself to come back. And then there are moments where it kind of just blooms. It just sort of is there. And I can sense that, and I'm excited by that. Then I usually I start describing it and then come back. And this is sort of my general experience, coming back. And then, almost like a new habit, it seems to just form. I noticed too that when I get to that place more and more, I find myself interested in expanding from there. And I feel that there's an intuitive sense of something that is aware of this, though kind of being able to, it feels to me like always like I'm expanding back. In order to do that, I sense I need just more acquaintance with that place. But I do feel this emerging kind of, I've been practicing this for a little while, and a sense of real peace and delight being in that place, just a real sweetness, which is wonderful,
Yes.
And the last thing I'll say is that there's the experience meditating with my eyes closed, and there's a real activity there in relationship to this process. But when I open my eyes, it's a bit of a different situation, and I find that it's the remembering faculty is reduced when I'm driving or when I'm hanging out or whatever we're doing. So that's just a general observation. But certainly I find myself very interested in bringing this experience into this more kind of active, quote unquote, life situation, if you will. So those are a few different kind of tastes of this that I experienced yesterday.
Wonderful. Can you simply choose to be convinced of the state that you know is there while you're driving and walking around? Just to go on conviction and faith, rather than having to have a direct meditation moment of remembrance and sweetness. Can you simply remember the sweetness through your conviction that it is the truth while you're dialoguing with someone?
At times I really can.
And this is what I mean with when you're penetrating or meditating, then when you're going out, that the level at which you can rest naturally is more pristine because you've penetrated in your meditations. That's why it's so crucial to do every once in a while at least, to have these extended periods of meditation where you're not allowing the world and your passions to distract you. You're really cutting to the chase. You're really going deep. Because then when you do reopen yourself to this thematic expression that you call a life, you will naturally have a pristiness, a clarity that pervades. It's like the back door never quite closes as closed as it was before. There's more of a brightness coming through. There's more of a breeze blowing through. And there's less and less this distinction of the world and the true self, because it's more and more known and obvious and convinced of. So it's great that you have these meditations. When you want to take that out into the world, you can either see everything as that state. So when you're running around, you're having sensations, remember your state of sweetness and depth, and label this as being that. Recognize this as being that. And or simply be convinced. When you're busy, simply be convinced of that state. Operate from that conviction. You may not always be able to look at it straight away, but if you have looked at it sufficiently enough and you know it, you can then come from it. The analogy I often use for conviction is that of gravity. When we're young, we have to pay attention to gravity. We're like trying to balance ourselves, and it's a real arduous thing to get from one side of the room to the other. It requires a lot of attention and awareness. Once we know and understand gravity, and we're convinced of it, how often do you think of gravity? You use it every single moment. When you're picking up an object, when you're scratching your head, when you're talking to a person, when you're walking, when you're driving, but you're never aware, consciously, deliberately focused on gravity, hardly ever. But you're convinced of it. You operate from its knowledge, effortlessly. But it's so invisible to the physical eye, to the physical mind, that it's difficult to focus on. It doesn't even seem relevant in our relative life of form. But still, something as formless as gravity, you use it all the time, unknowingly. But you can become convinced of your true natural state in a very similar way, and then operate from that knowledge. So you could try that. And continue to see everything as what it truly is. What's it truly made of? What can this not exist apart from? What can this not exist apart from? Is there anywhere the universe is not? Is there anywhere that you are not? That love, light, essence, awareness is not? Can you have an experience outside of yourself? Outside of that space, that vastness, that infinity? Does that help? Or
Yeah, thank you.
yeah, thank you for sharing. Lady to your right.
Hi. I had some really strong experiences yesterday and this morning.
Okay. Who knew the strong
Yeah,
experience?
yes. Of knowing, of really being in awareness, of really feeling in awareness and at peace, and like I did at the last retreat. And but the 2 days before that, I was really in meditations on the lawn. I was really trying to watch and look, and when I do that, when I use those words, I kind of really get in this mental state about it. I'll have the natural knowing when I close my eyes and I can feel that ease and isness, and then I'll be like, no, you got to watch it, And so I guess what I'm feeling.
Being in the ease of the self is watching it.
Yes.
So then when you're, and you'll all be playing with this at some point, because it's a level of subtlety that you'll reach, where the same approach of effort doesn't quite work. That effort needs to be completely balanced with surrender and faith. And it's tricky to explain. It's a very subtle way to utilize the will. So you'll find that too much will, and it takes you out of the ease.
Yes.
But too little will, and you're not utilizing that ease as much as you could to wake up in it. So it's kind of like you have to first accept that you're in that ease. And then from that state of ease, very gently, otherwise it will make you external and think and compare. But just from accepting that ease as being all there is, you just begin to open that aperture, that window. You begin to awaken, and then really form starts to sort of fall away. Don't think about that, but it's like you got to put yourself kind of in a coma, but still aware of the coma. It's
beautiful. I was kind of wondering what was next. So I was thinking about not wanting to go to that place of being too heady about it, and just being in this, and wondering if that was kind of the next opening would come.
Yes, and you'll see often it goes in kind of like little waves. you'll get a little too anxious and you notice like, oh, I'm becoming external. I'm using the mind rather than the true will, which is beyond the mind ultimately.
Right.
It's the bridge. So, and that's why I give you these concepts and these understandings at the mental level so often, because once you know it, once you get a really good sense of it, the first few times you hear it, it's conceptual. Then as you begin to hear it and understand it and grok it and see it, it locks in at a deeper level. Now that this knowledge, these comparisons that I make, these levels that I distinguish, when this has dropped into a deeper level and it's become knowledge and understanding, now this can apply itself. It can occur at a deeper state of meditation when you're kind of at the threshold of the mind, when you're so relaxed that you're not using the willful mind. But because you have the understanding and the way of seeing, you will now be able to quite naturally apply that with just a little amount of conscious effort without disturbing the surrender and the ease.
Thank you.
Did you want to share more, or was this sufficient?
No, that's perfect.
Thank you. Gentleman behind you.
This morning I awoke in a state of not knowing location and feeling, it felt like music from a place I know not. I don't know time within this feeling. And at some point an identity started to download into like, welcome to your day, this is how you feel. But so clearly do I feel this sensation now that I still feel it vibrating through me. And
what knows that? Are you aware of it? Something is aware of it. Can you ignore even that and stay with the knower of it? The I am. That's even before the subtlest and most expansive vibrations of the universe. If you know even those vast vibrations beyond space and time, that deep ease, if that even appears to you, then you must be even more infinite than what you really are, must even be more infinite. So that's great, because then we don't have to get lost in descriptions even of the most beautiful states. We can know ourselves always as beyond whatever appears. Thank you.
thank you.
You guys get this principle? It's easy to arrive at a certain state of pleasure or joy or profundity. I'm not saying these are not useful states or cannot be useful, but the way to make them useful is to not use them as an excuse to stop practice. It can be more amazing, if it can be more transcendent, if only you realize you're beyond even that. Does that make sense? And then ultimately know that you're beyond even the substratum of all possible experiences. Therefore beginning to glimpse and understand and become convinced of the fact that you, the you that's listening to me right now, that infinite vast space that cannot be captured in form, that you, the you that's always with you, the changeless you you've always been, somehow is free of the very substance that produces the entire universe, and you are that, which is not a this or a that. You are simply beyond the universe. You're beyond the light which enables all things. Therefore you are automatically beyond all things. It's an instant recognition that allows you to not have to deal with anything from that space. And that's the liberation to the human, in a sense. Because the human is used to always having to deal with everything, always having to take responsibility. And it's true on a relative level, we do have to do that. But from this absolute state, you see that nothing has ever happened to you, and therefore you're not responsible for anything. And there is no next universe or previous universe, or next life or previous life, or next density or previous density. The light which enables all densities and the entire scope and spectrum of evolution and all the potential experiences that creation could ever have of itself, that light appears to you. The you are now is already beyond the substance that produces the entire cosmos. Now that's freedom you can't buy.
Hey,
Hey,
thank you for the silent day yesterday.
for the what?
The silence.
Yes.
I had an amazing experience. I started.
Great, who knew that?
Mm,
But I'm curious.
mm.
I feel it will be helpful.
I sat and I relaxed first. Then I questioned myself, am I aware? Yes, I'm aware. Am I aware that I'm aware? Can I see the seer? What's beyond? What's beyond? Beyond, 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 beyond. At one point, I kept going for hours. At one point, I choked. So I lost my breath. And that was kind of distracting me, because I thought, okay, that's going to be a dirty article, you know, if I just die here. So...
Thank you for
so, so I said, and I was just sitting there, just, okay, what to do about this? Just keep breathing. That was the only answer I had, keep breathing. And then I kept in that faith and in that surrender of the beyond. Stayed beyond, 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 and then it was beyond. It was profound and beyond words, and nothing mattered.
Wonderful. You're glimpsing the absolute. That's wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. That's great.
Hello.
Hey.
I wanted to. I've been resting in. Sorry, I'm nervous. I've been resting in.
You're a nurse?
I'm nervous. I've been resting in.
A nervous nurse. That's not a good.
No,
combo.
I'm not a nurse. I've been resting in the knower of the awareness for a long time now, and it's sort of expanding as it goes. Sorry, I don't know why I'm so nervous. Anyhow,
Any nurse?
my question is, and it's expanded so much since I've been here. My question is, can you get into the absolute in a gradual way? Can it expand just bit by bit? Because it seems like my whole perception is changing as this journey increases.
So there's a difference between intuiting the absolute, which can be gradually increased, or actually jumping, so to speak. The actual threshold, I've never experienced as a gradual thing, like over days or anything. Gradual maybe like, it's like something that happens over seconds or minutes in terms of like a transcendent sort of popping out reflection. But an exclusive, direct, I don't know how to describe this, but a direct contact transcendence where you are the absolute and the rest is not. There's no more reference point. That is instant, momentary. There is no distinction possible there. There is nobody with a spiritual journey gradually moving into something or dissolving. Any and all talk of dissolving and merging and expanding happens inside of the I, happens inside of God's ego, of creation, of form, of experience. even if it's about experiencing its own light, even if it's about consciousness experiencing itself, its own self as everything, that, yes, is gradual and it has movement and motion to it. The popping out into the actual beyond, which is what you are right now, it's simply a shifting. You're turning yourself inside out and you're realizing you've never been anything but the absolute space. That is not gradual.
So the expanding and that I feel is more the knower, knowing the awareness, becoming more familiar with the knower.
Sorry, say that again.
So I'm becoming more familiar with the knower. Like I see life, the game that's playing in front of me, I see it from such a different standing point.
Uh-huh.
So is that me becoming more familiar with the knower of the awareness? Sort of the step before the absolute.
The knower of awareness is the absolute. The knower of experiences is awareness. Awareness is what knows life.
But I don't feel like it's that though. I don't like I'm knowing. I know I'm aware, and I'm knowing that I am aware of awareness, and I'm resting in the knower of awareness and everything else.
Yeah, so, but it's still just, I can tell by the vibration of what you're sharing, that is awareness.
Okay.
Yeah, it's awareness. It's, ultimately it is the absolute, but it's the absolute filtered through the veil of awareness looking at itself.
Okay.
So when I say know the knower, that's what you're saying, know awareness. Awareness knowing itself, basically.
Okay.
So, but it's still within the domain. The experiential aspect of it is still inside of the domain. It's still filtered through the delusion of I am.
Yeah. Okay. Thank
So,
you.
and yes, that happens gradually. So that deepens gradually. That purifies the mind just by resting in it, by becoming more convinced of it, by choosing it, by staying true to it, by being convinced of it, by having faith in it, by letting everything else happen, whatever wants to happen, staying true to that, staying true to that. This is the purification process. The mirror that you could call mind becomes more reflective of its source, which is awareness. And then as one practices that, one begins to inquire into the nature of awareness itself, the nature of things itself. What's the nature of the nature of things? This is that ripeness at which we can begin to intuit the absolute infinite perfection, from where awareness arose to begin with, from where identity appeared, from where I am and beingness arose. And that, when that question begins to marinate, which can be gradual, but the actual popping out experience, so to speak, for lack of a better word, that she was approaching in her meditation, beyond, that's not a journey, in a sense. It's not someone having a journey, or someone marinating or purifying, or someone becoming more convinced of anything. It's radical, it's absolute, and there's no process, there's no time, there's no substance for it to be gradual. It's absolute. The absolute is not gradual. The absolute is instant, and always instant. It's ever infinitely, timelessly instant.
Okay, thank you.
Sweet. But it's a good practice. What you're doing is good, so go deeper with that, go deeper with that. But I sense maybe there's a fear of going deeper. Like there's hesitation.
I don't think there's a fear. Like yesterday I listened to your meditation, and then I rested in this awareness, blissful awareness of awareness for 3 hours. And I looked at the time and I was just like, what the hell? You know, where has that time gone? And it's just so blissful.
Well, don't get it back.
So I'm not scared of it. I love it. You know, I'm just totally in love with this state. It's the best ever.
But are you hesitant to let go of that state, or go beyond that state? Go into the unknown?
If I am, I want to know why I am, because I'm just loving it so much. There's nothing stopping me.
But I'm saying going beyond that. You don't know what that is yet, so you can't love it fully yet.
No, I'm loving where I am now.
That's what I'm saying. So are you hesitant to go beyond where you are now? Because there's some identity with having done it for years, with really loving it, with being able to do it, with being able to recognize what it is. So it gives a sense of security and stability.
So if I am hesitant, how do I get rid of that hesitancy?
Good question. First of all, notice, acknowledge, and own the fear if there is any hesitation. There must be an idea or a notion of attachment to what you know, even though what you know is maybe the knower and it's blissful and it's beyond ordinary thought. But still, it's something that we know. It's something you can rely on. It's like going home. Like, oh yeah, you know what your house looks like and feels like, and it's comfortable. So you can ask yourself, who do I think I am that is so comfortable with knowing the knower? Who is the identity that's left that is attached to knowing the knower, that's comfortable with that? That owns it, that knows that it's been doing this for years and that can utilize it for its benefit. Who is that person? What does that person consist of? What is its nature? What is it made of? Is it real?
I was actually contemplating that yesterday.
Nice.
Sort of trying to, when I was so deep in it, I was just exploring how in awe and how amazing it must be. Not thinking, but just intuiting, I suppose. Yeah.
Nice. What you mean, to go beyond, or?
Yeah.
Yeah. So who is resting as awareness? Who is knowing the knower? Is there any entity that's doing that? Or is it simply the nature of reality as we know it? Nature of illusion is simply the knower. Awareness is the nature, it's the substance.
Yeah.
The formless substance of all that has form. The emptiness to form. But it's still something, because it still has a quality of emptiness, awareness, love, isn't it? What's beyond all those qualities, and what has no identity, as we know it?
Yeah, I can intuit that, because I see it's bigger than you can even think of.
Well, that's good. So that means that you have some sense of it. So as soon as you have a sense of it, even the most vague, abstract, intuitive sense, but somehow something in you knows what I'm talking about and referencing. Something knows that there must be an absolute one infinite source of all other sources and things. Something in you knows this. Why? Because it's what you are. So it needs a really dense mind or really spiritualized mental mind to disagree with this statement. If you're open and receptive at all, you will know that something about what I'm saying is actually absolutely true. And it captivates you. It fascinates you. You want to get to know what that is. What is that absolute source? Especially when I share that it's possible to know what it is directly. You should be curious, because it's the absolute source. It's the infinite absolute. It renders everything else comparatively no, like nothing. Reduces all to less than dust. It's the one infinite. You know, so I think, well, raise your hand if you have no resonance or recognition with this, which should be weird because you paid good money to be here. So yeah, okay, see, there's a resonance there. So you have some sense of it, otherwise you wouldn't be here. That's my point. If you have a sense of it, it's like your hook of your fishing line is hooked into the absolute, which is you. Ironically, it's from where you look. It's from where awareness is aware. So there's awareness of stuff, but from where is awareness aware? This is why know the knower can work, because it's the same direction, but continued past the state of feeling like you are consciousness as an identity. You just continue it. Well, from where do I know that I know? And instead of resting in the known, which is the knower is still known, no? We still know the knower. So it's not the absolute. Who knows the knower? Question mark. Rest in the mystery. Don't rest in what you know. Don't rest in the known of the knower. Rest in the mystery beyond the knower. Accept the question mark, the mystery. If you have a sense of it, you can reel yourself toward it. You just need to want it more. How do you want it more? By see that it will absolutely blow everything else out of the water. And it will ruin your life for the rest of your life. That's fun, no? Isn't that why you came here? A little disruption to the illusion. Be a tear in the veil of the matrix of isness. Be a black hole yourself. What is that? Develop a curiosity for that. Thank you.
So after you've had a glimpse of the absolute, what's next? To extract the most benefit. What do you do after that?
It really depends on what you want. I don't profess to know that you should do anything. But in terms of levels of absoluteness and the ultimate purpose of the universe is for it to achieve a state of perfect knowledge, which you're not responsible for with this physical brain, so you don't have to worry about that. But then, consequently, for it to coalesce back into the absolute, for everything to be reabsorbed and go back to being in a state of potential rather than in a state of active consciousness. Consciousness disappears for all intents and purposes. Consciousness merges in the absolute and is in abeyance, or is in a potential state rather than in an active state. So, if you want to apply that to the microcosm of this particular life and where you're at in your journey, if you have indeed glimpsed the absolute, then the answer would simply be more of that, more of that, more of that.
So then for the purpose of extracting the most benefit from my time here, what would then be my focus in meditation?
I would have to know a little bit more the intricacies of your experience and your meditation and the nature of your glimpse with the absolute to be able to answer that adequately.
I don't feel it's relevant in the setting.
Okay. Very general terms, anything that works for you to get to the threshold of creation, of isness. And the same thing would apply to you, but you could do it in your own ways, to what I'm sharing with everyone here, which is know the knower, know the knower, know the knower, until you know that the knower is the substratum of all things, that consciousness is the container and the manifester of all things. Everything consists of consciousness, of awareness, love, isness. Then when that's clear in your perception, ask yourself, what's beyond that?
And if you have experienced that, what's beyond that? And you embody it is not the word, but...
Convinced of it?
Yes.
You can increase that conviction. But still, like I've shared, there's a distinct difference between intuiting or being transparent to the absolute, which is amazing and completely changes the way you operate, and it's wonderful. And that too should and can be developed. So that's great practice while you're quote-unquote focused here. But when it comes to actual direct contact, pop-out, exclusive, I am the one infinite absolute and nothing else is, that will require, in my experience, very direct meditation and desire for that.
So you
so
can penetrate.
that cannot be lived, is what I'm saying. That
Right.
cannot be integrated at that stage, at that point, which is not a stage or a point. There's no sense of extracting benefit from anything, or how to utilize or how to integrate or embody more, or what's next. So I would say go and see if you can reproduce, regenerate that true direct contact experience if you've had it. And if not, if you've had an intuitive state of it, just continue with that until it does indeed pop you out. What's beyond that? What's beyond that? What's beyond that? What's beyond that? And again, I've never been able to recreate an exclusive pop-out experience like this without will, without like an intensified, aligned, resonant, graceful moment of absolutely wanting it. and it is distinct from intuiting it or glimpsing it. It's distinct. It's the end of everything, beyond everything. There's no story left. There's no identity left. You have completed the journey in that moment, even though you go back and
So it's like a tethering. Once
Sorry?
you've had the pop out,
Mhm.
then you come back into awareness, and then you just tether and go back to penetrate deeper.
Yeah, and there seems to be some relevance, and this is all an experiment because, I only know what I know as well, and I have only my own journey to go off of. But my experience so far, and we're talking about subtle levels now, so at this level, I have to admit where I'm at, and I have to speak from that state, and you guys can, help complete this body of work ultimately. But what seems to be the case for me is that there is a certain relevance still to there being this focalization, this veil over my eyes, over my absolute eyes. And there is a great transparency to the absolute that is pretty much constant, but there isn't the exclusive, stateless, direct, absolute absorption as the absolute alone on a constant basis. So there seems to be some relevance, at least for me. There's desire left in why I'm here. There is still fuel in the car for something to be expressed in a certain way that seems to utilize my focus in ways that I would not be utilizing if I were in a complete state of the absolute. I would not be able to model that. I would be perfection all the time. So, just certain things that I cannot imagine, like modeling or doing or establishing in the illusion without this form and without some degree of veil coming over the absolute. So I guess my suggestion, if any, well, first of all, each individual journey is different, so for you this may not be relevant, just know that. But I see you as someone that's very active, proactive, entrepreneurial, wanting to share benefit, and I think there's a lot of power in your incarnation and in your theme. Not that this should distract you from the absolute focus, but it seems to be harmonious, at least in my experience, to hold both realities, relative and conventional, and absolute, and find a view that is harmonious with these two, that in a sense unifies them even though they are so distinct in direct experience. To just allow yourself to be okay with the fact that you have a relative function and that your focus will be here when it is here. Because if there's no acceptance of that, then either you are successful in penetrating into the absolute and staying there, or you're just going to be fighting the blueprint, and your higher self may actually battle the will of your current self, because for some reason it sees that there's the greater benefit in staying more focused here than there is in having a constant, direct, exclusive
Exactly.
disillusion experience. So in my experience, I've tried to fight this, but it hasn't worked. So at some point I realized, well, the next best thing I could do in my mind is to completely accept the fact that this is my journey, or at least accept it as much as I can, and have as much fun doing it, and be a little rebellious and stuff. So it's like honoring the ego in a sense, honoring the ego by allowing it to have fun, staying as true and transparent as you can to the absolute oneness, or beyond oneness, the one, while you allow its operations to occur, staying as true and pure and mirror-like as you can. Always learning on a relative level. You're always learning. I'm always learning on a relative level. I'm always tweaking and fine-tuning and learning on a relative level, even though I can also access the absolute level where I'm not learning anything in the conventional sense anymore. It's beyond all learning. So I'm simultaneously beyond aware of myself as beyond all learning, but still relatively I am also learning and dissecting and discerning. So the journey continues in the conventional realm, while the journey is over in the absolute realm.
Yes.
And it's a dichotomy. And it needs to be harmonized in order for you to feel okay with what's happening and where your focus is.
Thank you.
Does this help?
Yes, very much.
Sweet. Thank you.
Whew. I realize I have a little resistance to use this mic.
To using the mic?
Yeah.
Okay. Who knows?
Last time I used this, I ended up in a freaking article, so.
Sure. Yeah, this is the famous lady to who I kept repeating "fuck you" on stage. For those who.
That's me. Thank you so much.
So it seems you are a little traumatized.
No.
Did you, and feel free to say the truth, did you extract more benefit than trauma from that experience?
No, I don't think I was traumatized.
Okay, good.
It's just, you know. Yeah, I wouldn't have been here, obviously, if I didn't extract the benefit, so.
Nice.
And so, yeah, fuck you.
Fuck you too, sweetheart.
You cult leader. So, I think what I was gonna share. I think so. In terms of going back to know the knower, I think I'm trying to know the knower through my mind, which is like kind of setting myself for failure because my mind can never grasp the infinite. And I'm like in my meditation, I think I have the glimpse of the infinite, but if it's like I just can't surrender my mind. It feels so, I have a resistance to let my mind go completely, like as if, you know, so I'm feeling a little bit stuck and like feeling resistance about, especially yesterday, I also shared on Facebook before that, I have this pattern of postponing things. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna realize infinite a little later. Let me do this, take care of this work first. I will realize this later. I will, like, it's about not just infinite, it's about, you know, the things that I'm here to do, like realizing my dreams and everything that matters to me. I have a pattern of postponing, like, okay, I'll do it later, and I'm so sick of it. And and let me see. So how can I just surrender the mind? And
yes.
And I have this resistance because as if like surrendering the mind, like letting go of the mind, kind of as I associated it with like it's almost saying my brain like you're worthless, like stop, like offending my brain in a way, you know, like as if I will become stupid or something when I surrender my mind. There's this weird concept that holding me back from surrendering.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Do you have the Direct Means to Eternal Bliss book?
No, I don't.
Sweet. If you do end up getting it, there is the first 2 chapters, I believe, are on the imposter cell, and it really drives the dagger home in terms of all the millions of excuses and postponements and reasons that the imposter mind, which means it's a false sense of self that operates as if it is you, and it's got you by the balls, so to speak. It like has you believe that it's actually representing who you are. And there's millions of ways that it deceives itself, because its nature is to sustain itself, to be your savior, to help you, to support you, to be your substitute servant. So these things will be seen more the more we liberate ourselves from it, or the more we increase our desire to be free of it. So you'll see more and more of those postponements, and you'll get sicker and sicker and more tired of them. At which point there's this disengagement that happens from the false self, and you see that it's never been who you are. So yes, there is a million ways that we postpone and excuse and all kinds of silly reasons. And the more we're on the brink of freedom, the more that these excuses will be thrown to the surface, and they'll get more irrational and weird and convincing in weird ways. Because its nature is to survive, so to speak. So if you can understand, while it's still trying to survive, that already it's not who you are. It's not ultimately a problem because it's not who you are. If you can increase that realization, then you can allow it to go nuts without feeling like it represents you. Or like it's representing your case. Or like they're your excuses or your postponements or your reasons. In fact, where you're looking from, at the reasons, at the imposter self, where you're coming from when you see it, is beyond it already as it is, and that's you. Just focus on that. Disidentify from the identity. Disidentify from the postponements and the excuses and the reasons. They can still be there. Don't try to fight them. Just really clearly, as clearly as you can, realize that it's an imposter self that pretends like it's you, and it's just blaring in your face, like, oh, do this, do that, and this should be that way. When you disengage and see that it's not you, then you can rest in your natural state of awareness and utilize it as just another reference point, another appearance that confirms that you're already coming from beyond it. Otherwise you couldn't see it. You can only describe this whole story to me because you're not the story. Already in truth, you are beyond it. You're free. So then, don't give too much credit to the stories. Don't give too much credit to the excuses. Just disengage. Just see it for what it is, and realize you're already beyond it. Then, this allows you to rest deeper into the self. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. There was a brightness about you, but it might just be the white hair underneath the spotlight.
I don't think so.
I was confusing it for an aura.
Can you hear me?
And you are bright.
Hello. Let's try. Morning.
Good morning.
Is it, I think? No.
Hey, can we turn this up a little bit, Luke?
Testing. Can you hear me? Okay, I'll talk right into it.
Sweet.
There was a statement that I never couldn't understand, and now I do, and it's the one that Jesus had said, I am the way, and the truth, and the light, and no one comes to the Father but through me.
Wonderful.
And I get it.
Wonderful.
And I think that I found that it permeates everything, and someone said that you had described this, and it's just the blink. It's the blink now. You know, it's absolute Satchitananda. Absolute Satchitananda. And I'm committed to an enlightened civilization by 2035.
Woohoo!
And this is showing up for me in this way.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, Ben. Thanks for running this retreat.
Sweet.
I've already received quite a upgrade.
Good.
And I want to express some gratitude for you, the teachings, everyone here.
Thank you.
Yesterday, there was a big shift as far as kind of this magnetism, this grasping a hold of the knower, and just digging deeply. And I felt this transition into the reality where I have already realized the absolute, and it's just a matter of time. And to see, you know, the truth, and to see, to see how that has also empowered my relative self as well, to be more aware of how this fits into my relative picture, and how it was there through my whole history, and now connected. Yeah, it was really powerful. So I'm excited today's going to be a big day.
Thank you.
So yeah.
Thanks for sharing. So, yes. It's okay for the venue if we go a little bit over this time frame, right? Okay.
Okay, just to share briefly my experience from yesterday. I half the time I found myself struggling with know the knower, because I saw that there's a mind and a separate identity trying to apply the teaching. And
the one who sees that is free of it. Huh?
Yes, it is. But in a way, this approach of there was too much force in me. So it's like the approach of will, you said, yeah? So, but for me it's force. So I surrendered and was able to be the knower, but this wasn't complete. So the only thing which works out for me yesterday was to include everything, to the known, to the one who knows. So, but only through surrender. So
wonderful. Yeah, it's good.
And I felt like a window, and everything appears on me. So it's like the glass here. So this.
Yes.
Even the sky, I could touch the sky, but without hands. So
yes, good.
So this was
that's
beautiful.
Good.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yes. And another question I have is, I feel myself when I struggle is I just read this: your absolute self is that which never appears, and I reach out there and I can intuit it.
Good.
And
wonderful.
I don't use these words. I use it. I have other words like
sure.
Love the mystery, or yes, know the mystery, or whatever. And I just want to know if it's a safe way to stay with that, because I can't use this know the knower approach anymore. It's really exhausted. Either I surrender, or I love the mystery, and then everything gets quiet.
Wonderful. I encourage you guys.
I just want to know, is it safe to go by that?
Thank you, and feel free to check in. But yes, in your case, this feels good to me. What you just shared feels on point. So please feel free to proceed in that way. And you're going to have to tweak the words along your journey, and you're going to have to tweak the pointer in your own way along the journey. These are just the bare basic sort of truths that scientifically as we can state it, so that you're not getting confused in concepts or has less potential. You have less potential to get confused or trapped by thinking it's this or that. Because you can always ask yourself, well, am I knowing the knower? Like even if you use other words for it, you understand the principle behind it, that it's not what you perceive, it's that you perceive. It's the perceiver becoming more aware of the fact that you are the perceiver. And everyone can get that shift. That is enlightenment, nothing else is. Does that make sense? Nothing else is enlightenment. That's the moment of enlightenment, nothing else is. That is a moment of awakening, nothing else is. Everything else is changing the colors of your car. Everything else is replacing a feeling for a feeling. Everything else is believing you're one thing over another. Everything else is projection, separation, externalization, illusion, delusion, falsity. It's not the truth. The truth is that you are, that you perceive, that you know. If you just understand that, then you can use whatever organically in your sort of subtler, more pristine meditations, whatever pointers come to you those can be very profound for you, at least for a period of time, before possibly they exhaust themselves. So absolutely, you have the freedom to tweak these things, but stay as close as you can until you're certain of what you're doing. Does that make sense? Otherwise, it can happen that you think that you're doing something in the same way, but it's a tweak that you've made, but it's not actually awakening or enlightenment. It is replacing one sensation with another. So that's why Know the Knower is so profound, because you can always use it to cut through the crap. Am I knowing the knower, or am I knowing the known? It's that simple. Am I looking at and describing and investing power into what I see, a state, a feeling, an emotion, a thought, a meditation, or in the fact that I see it? That and that alone is a moment of awakening or enlightenment. Nothing else is. If you remember that, with that in mind, you're free to tweak it if you have to, for the purpose of its effectiveness increasing. Thank you. So let's do a short meditation of about 10 minutes, and then you can repeat this meditation for yourself for a longer period of time and drop in more during our session outside today. And this was really helpful and good, and I have a clear sense of how to proceed, so thank you for your feedback. And today what we're going to explore, which is very powerful, is how the known appears only due to the knower. Why does this help? It helps because we generally generate a sense of separation between the known and the knower, which is okay. For practical purposes, that's totally fine. But what it does is it can leave out the understanding. Well, two things mainly. In everyday life, it will generate that distinction, that separation, which can lead to some confusion and some hardship because you're trying to get away from life. You think that knowing the knower means you have to get away from what is, which essentially is not true, because what is already is the knower. So that's something that's not ultimately true. But also, and most importantly for this retreat and the stage of where we're at, why I want you to meditate today on feeling the field as a singular field of isness, is because it will amplify the capacity to go beyond it. Whereas if there is the separation or the dichotomy between the known and the knower, then the state of the knower knowing itself is actually less potent, less bright, less powerful than when it's filled with this sense of love and inclusion and inseparability. When the knower is known, and the known is known to be inseparable from the knower, excuse all the words. In other words, let's use other words. To try to apply the jump into the absolute, the leap into the absolute, into recognition of the absolute, to a glimpse and intuition of the absolute, or even a direct realization of the absolute. To apply that just to awareness is possible, but in my experience it has been more potent the times that I've seen that every experience in creation is somehow inseparable from this I am, this beingness, this awareness that we're trying to see beyond. So it's like when you see that all things are inseparable from awareness, it's like it charges the experience of I am. It's like supercharges. It's like suddenly it's filled to the brim with energy and inclusion and oneness. And now this, as Ra calls it, this spiritual mess reaches higher levels, which is what's helpful for it to then coalesce into realization of what's beyond the infinite energy of awareness, love, isness. So to have awareness as sort of a stale, dry witness apart from its experiences isn't nearly as potent of a trampoline to jump into the absolute as to understand the all-inclusive oneness and separability nature of expression, form, experience, light, and to understand that the nature of all of creation, the entire expanse of creation, is light and one with this I amness. When you see that the nature of your appearances is the beingness that you are, is the I am, it's like it's supercharged, and from that state of brightness, we can jump beyond that much more potently and really have a profound distinction happen between the absolute and isness. And that will then never leave you the same. Inseparability has been one of the trickier experiences for me to communicate. It's very subtle, it's a non-linear realization. It goes beyond the gross concepts and words in the mind. So bear with me. Repetition will be key. So for the meditation outside, repeat things along the lines of what I am about to say now. Just absorb it, program yourself with this, and repeat it deliberately, consciously, with a high level of clarity during the meditation later today. Notice the I am. First, notice the I am, the sense of I am, which is the same as the beingness. Now imagine that this I am, depending on how personal or individualized this I am still feels to you, imagine that actually there's a field of which this I am is a part. This field being this bigger body of I am, this vast, formless, impersonal, not tied to any individual location sense of the entity, the first identity, the I am. Somehow know and intuit, non-linearly, beyond mind, that the I am, the essence of all thought, the essence of all form, the essence of all color, the absence of all perception, that somehow this I am essence, somehow, you don't have to be able to picture it, but somehow just intuit that that sense of I am which every being has is indeed present everywhere. In fact, it's not even everywhere. Everywhere is a projection out of this universal light of pure business, awareness, beingness, identity, pure identity, period. Pure identity, pure I am. That universal I, indwelling in all projections and appearances. Now, try to imagine if anything could ever, anywhere, ever exist apart from this beingness, until you realize it's not possible. So you want to try to imagine the impossible until you get that it cannot happen. That every projection, every form, every experience ever had is contained within the I am. There is no experience possible outside of the I am. There is no perception possible apart from awareness, the isness, the I am, the you, the me-ness, the beingness. I want you to get a sense, an intuitive, instinctual sense, feeling of how what you see and taste and feel and sense, whatever it might be, somehow is the I am that you are, inseparable from the beingness. There's nothing, literally nothing outside of I am. All things occur in the I am. And you can begin by seeing this in your personal life, by allowing some of your memories of your life to occur, to arise. Just random snapshots here and there of your day, today even, something a week ago. Doesn't matter what it is. But see that all your experiences from the past up to now and going forward into the future. Ask yourself where these have appeared. Due to what have these experiences been enabled and known? Have you ever experienced anything apart from being the experiencer of it, the I am which knows it? The knower is the I am. And continue with this investigation during your meditation later until you recognize that there's not a single memory in your life, not a single sensation, thought, emotion, from nanosecond to nanosecond to nanosecond. There has not been any perception in your entire life outside of you, the you-ness that is aware, the knower. Nothing has ever been known outside of the knower. Know this. That, when you're left with that, and the mind stops because it cannot comprehend it, and yet you have faith in the conviction that arises that somehow this must be true, that is enough. Stay with that faith. Somehow you know that every experience in your personal life has been inseparable, impossible to separate from the essence of I am, the knower that sees it, that knows it. There is nothing known apart from the knower knowing it. The known exists only as the knower. Perception and experiences only exist as awareness. Form only exists as beingness, inside of you-ness. Try to show yourself an experience that you've had outside of you-ness, outside of you, being, and you will not be able to find one. When you get a sense of this, extrapolate it to the entire cosmos, the entire universe of creation, of illusion, all the densities, all the worlds, all the galaxies, and imagine that all of this infinite plethora of experience has never existed apart from the universal I am. It is inside of awareness that the universe appears. It is therefore made of awareness, and it doesn't have any substance. Form and experiences do not have a substance other than awareness, dreaming light. All of matter is light projected inside of awareness, inside of the universal I amness, the isness, the identity, pure isness. All things are mere thoughts of isness. Get a sense of this infinite field of light appearing as all things, being inseparable from the you-ness that you know is true beyond the person. The you-ness that you are beyond the person is the you-ness that contains the universe. That innermost me is the source of all appearances, and no appearance can ever leave the space of you. There is no life to an appearance beyond you, beyond you-ness, beyond me-ness, beyond consciousness, beyond identity, beyond the universe, beyond the beingness, beyond God. There is no life to an appearance. Appearances cannot escape God or isness or beingness or awareness and survive. Literally, all is made up of God. Love, isness, formlessness. Formlessness, formless awareness is all appearances. The universe exists only as an experience, and not as an actual object. Only as being known. Only as a known quality inside of the knower, due to the knower, thanks to the knower, enabled by the knower, projected by the knower, as the knower, inside the knower, inseparable from the knower, fueled by the knower, only consisting of knowerness, knowingness. Only in that way does the universe exist. It is inseparable from consciousness. It has no life of its own. All things are empty of an independent nature. Only awareness, isness, pure I amness is. Nothing else is. Only isness is. All things are only the isness that perceives them. They don't exist past being a perception of this isness. The whole universe collapses. It's understood to be an experience in the knower only. The whole universe is inside the knower that you are, beyond the personality assumption. Intuit this somehow. Make this as pristine as you can. Make this your exclusive focus for the next meditation. You can use your own ways, but you want to get to the intuitive, instinctual, experiential, faith-based, inclusive understanding that the entire existence is nothing but the formless space, awareness, love, light, that there is no matter. There's nothing outside or apart from God. There only is isness. There only is identity. No cloud exists apart from sky. No perception exists apart from awareness. No color exists apart from the three primary colors. No experience exists apart from awareness, love, light, isness, beingness. You are what you see. What you see is you. No separation. You are awareness. What you see is confirmation of and exists only due to this awareness. It has no life outside of awareness. Just like clouds don't exist outside of sky. Form does not exist apart from formlessness. It is already free and empty and timeless. Appearances are already traceless. No experience has ever left a trace. It's because no experience has ever been real or substantial. Like a dream at night. When you wake up, you realize it was all inseparable. All the dimensions you explored in your dream were inseparable from the thinker that created it, the mind that produced those experiences, those hallucinations. This entire universe is a hallucination of the one infinite I amness that resides in all the illusory points of individuation. Somehow know this field. Become acquainted with the inseparability. See that everything is already accepted as being part of an expression, a traceless, formless, free, timeless, perfect expression of the one infinite substance, which is love, isness, awareness, which is the you that hears these words. The you that hears these words is the source of these words, and these words have no life outside of the hearer of these words. Realize this. Recognize inseparability. The mind cannot grok it, but with analogies and with the proper meditation, you can develop a sense for it and begin to have faith in that sense that nothing can exist apart from you, that no experience, that no world exists apart from the I am. The I am is all there is. The I am is all that appears. All that appears is inseparable, does not exist apart from I am. All is the I am. All is the I am. All is I am. Only isness is. Only isness is. Only isness is. Only I am is. Only I am exists. There is no world. There is only the I am. Nothing can ever be projected apart from the light that projects it. The movie cannot exist apart from the projector light. Your body, your mind, your world, others, galaxies, cannot appear apart from the knower, which enables the knowing of itself in that projection. Inseparable. Learn to see the light as the movie. Learn to see the light of I am as form, as perceptions, as the world. The world as the world is unreal. The world as God's light is real. Establish yourself in that sense of somehow being convinced that all is one big soup of pure, infinite I am light. There only is the light of awareness, the light of God, illuminating all things. This is profound preparation for tomorrow. It is, in its own right, incredibly enlightening and liberating and unifying and love-inducing and freedom-releasing. But it is still preparation. So prepare. Meditation is preparation for non-meditation or beyond meditation. So supercharge your consciousness with the sense that there is nothing apart from it. And then we'll proceed from there tomorrow. Today, supercharge your awareness with the light of all things being reabsorbed into the original infinite light of God, which you are. Thank you.
And just a few announcements. If you want to bring the meditation to the dance floor tonight, at Sedona Hot Yoga, 7:30 to 9 p.m. Doors close at 8, so make sure you get there before 8. And if you bring your ID or lanyard, you can get in for just $10. It's a public open event, so if you have other friends in town, you can bring them as well. Make sure, on that note, to bring your IDs and have them visible for us. You need this for the entire 12 days. So just make sure that you bring it to every event. And those of you who borrowed some this morning that forgot, just make sure to bring them back. And then Chris here made these Know the Knower bracelets that are outside, available for sale. And then a reminder, we've been seeing some people still have tea or juice, maybe in like their containers and things. So please make sure to only bring water into the entire building. If you do have juice or anything, just put it on the bookshelf in the room. And then last thing, just make sure to help us clear the room, especially right now. We have like 5 minutes to clear. So if you can just take all your belongings and help us clear out of the entire building, that would be amazing.